Welcome to Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads. This is a space for building community and for honest conversations about fatherhood, the wins, the struggles, and the responsibility of building something that outlives us. Each episode, we sit down with leaders, dads, and friends to talk about family, fatherhood, and the kind of men our kids need us to be, because legacy isn't accidental, it's built. All right, Kev, we're back. What a great way to start. I want to talk about two great starts. One great start. We have official things happening. We had like a director, action.
It's legit, yeah.
What's that thing called?
A slate. We had a slate.
We had a slate. With
yes.
We'll put it on social media. I'm like amazed. I feel I'm in now. Like I'm fired up for this. But we had a great opening kind of season 2 about foundation.
Yeah.
Laying a foundation parallel to laying the foundation as a dad for a long-term legacy. Amazing conversation with David Salyers, who just hope y'all enjoyed him. But we need to continue. Let's continue on the house building analogy that we're on here. And we're going to go to framing for the future.
Okay, so it's just for dumb people like me. We've laid a foundation.
Yep.
So we've dug out. We probably have some concrete, some kind of a foundation that has settled, it's secure, and now
we're building walls, baby.
And this is like when you start to see, this is before the plywood, this is before the sheetrock.
Yeah, I think
this
so.
is a bunch of studs that are, okay, I like this.
Well, and the thing is, a house that doesn't have proper framing is going to collapse under its own weight.
Yeah.
And I think about the parallels to being a dad, raising a family, trying to have a lasting legacy. If we're not careful in this phase, as we think about it, there'll be a collapse under the weight of culture, under the weight of just the world, all the things.
I go back because in foundation, we talked about things that it's unseen. Foundation is a little bit different because there will be things on it. So it's not completely seen, but it's much more visible. The structure, the way the house looks is really contingent on the framing. And so this is where we really start to put the structure around what does home look like for us? What does it look like for our kids?
That's right. We get to decide that.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to decide that.
Yeah.
If we act or not is going to be vital, and how we act, because again, culture will frame for us and our families if we let it. Pressure from the world that we feel will help frame if we let it.
I just want to, because I'm going to keep going back to this metaphor. Those are outside influences. So if there's a blueprint for a house and everybody follows it the right way, it's going to work. If somebody shows up on the job site one day and says, what if we move that wall? Or what if we do that? What you're talking about is there are going to be outside influences that will shape our kids, and it's up to us to make sure that the right framing is in place.
Yeah, and so, I think about this. The way that we frame it, the impact to our kids, they're either going to feel complete clarity of this is super clear. This is how things are supposed to be. I understand this. I'm walking in rooms that make sense, theoretically. Or confusion.
Yeah.
Confusion meaning I hear one thing from my mom, I hear one thing from my dad. It's not consistent. But then I go to school and I'm hearing this, and then I go to my sports teams and they're saying this, or saying that on the bus. This is what I'm seeing on Instagram. We need to frame for them so it's clear and not confusing as they walk through life.
Tell me about, there was something you were sharing with me, American Parenting or Psychological something.
Yeah. So American Psychological Association.
Okay.
Children thrive in environments that combine two things. Warmth and structure.
Okay.
Warmth and structure. This is known as authoritative parenting.
Okay, now authoritative parenting, that does not sound like very in vogue. Like on Instagram, I feel like we need like kind parenting, soft parenting.
Right. Well, and this
affirming.
is an and. This is a very much an and.
Okay.
Warmth without structure.
So I want to say, warmth is like the way it feels. That's the kindness. That is the love that exists. The structure is clear boundaries, clear expectations, accountability.
Yeah, because and
so tell me if we have warmth, so all the warm, fuzzy, nice stuff without structure, what does it? What happens?
Chaos. And you think about that.
There's been a lot of that in the world because we have we're interviewing people now. There are people. Do you know there's people that are like 23 that bring their parents to their job interviews?
Yes.
That's chaos.
That's chaos.
So we can't have warmth without structure.
Yep.
Okay, what happens if you just have structure though, like tough dad without warmth?
Fear.
And you and I have talked about this many episodes ago, but I think generationally, that was probably something that existed back in the day. Like that was much more common.
Yeah. But framing requires both. That's why I say it's an and discussion. I was looking on this topic as we prepared. The Harvard University Center on Developing Children, that's a thing, emphasizes that predictable and stable relationships are the single strongest protective factor in childhood development.
Man, predictable and stable.
Predictable and stable.
That's such a great picture of a foundation.
Warmth and structure.
Yeah.
And it's on us. It's on us to frame that for our families and for our kids.
Yeah. Let's go down the structure framing path. Let's talk about these 4 things that we believe that to frame things well, we need to identify or make decisions on.
Yeah, I mean, first you hit it earlier. You got to have a plan. You got to have a blueprint. I mean, you get a foundation laid, you start framing, and you're like not quite sure. I'm going to start with this one room and see what happens. You got a couple of rooms and hallways. It's not all going to add up. It's not going to be equal. You're going to have complete really chaos in a house, right? So same thing. You got to have a blueprint that you're trying to follow. You got to start with the end in mind.
This is parenting by design, not by default.
That's right.
Which means we have talked. So that's conversations with your spouse. That is just thinking about. And I'll tell you, I did not do this well early on. Like before we had our first child, Laura was reading all the parenting books. I'm like, I'm not reading these books. I'm not. No. And I'm not saying you got to read the book, but we need to think about ahead of time. You would never go build a house or maybe let's add another room here. Like there is an architect who lays a plan. We need to be thinking about that for our kids.
Yeah. And sometimes we think of this more like we're saying like, that's just too big, or I don't want to do that. I'm not even talking about have a family crest and what's your ethos is. I'm not It's as simple as like making sure when you go to your child's sports game, you're prepared to act like their parent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to let my emotions get worked up. I'm not going to scream, take him out of the game when he screws up, because maybe someone's done that at this table. It's, if this goes badly, I'm not going to talk to him about this at this. Like, that sounds great, but like you need to have a plan. You cannot just let your emotions, we're all emotional creatures. Like that's about with Camden and with sports now. Like I am not screaming. I scream at the refs a little bit, but man,
Brittany never screams at these, right?
I've had multiple people in the last week come up to me because we've had playoff games. Like I didn't know Brittany was like that. Like one of the pastors at the church was like, we were playing after y'all, man. Brittany really gets into it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because I was coach. I'm like, what did she say?
I love this. Okay, so you've got to follow a blueprint. That's the first thing. Which just means deciding ahead of time,
right?
How you want the framing to be for the culture, your family, how it feels. So that's number 1. Number 2, I really like this example. We need to establish load-bearing walls.
Yes.
Now, people's like, what does that have to do with parenting? Okay, when you're building a house, there are certain walls. You ever been in a house where they're like, oh, we're going to take out the wall between the living room and the dining room. We're going to open this space up. They can do that because that wall wasn't load-bearing. There wasn't supposed to be pressure on it. Yeah, I think you actually y'all are doing this in your house right now.
We're doing some stuff in the girls' room. Same thing, right? Like we were trying to give them a little more space. They share a room. Open up the bathroom a little bit. They're like tornadoes, and so we're trying to give them some more space. We can do that.
Because that wall
is not load bearing, and I think about that as in our children's lives. There's going to be things that we are going to be flexible at certain
in different
points,
seasons.
In different seasons.
In this season, we need this wall here. That is this whole idea of parenting tighter and stronger in the earlier years so that you can increase the flexibility. So
Yeah.
the wall exists now, but as they get older, that can be removed,
That's right.
and we can increase the flexibility.
So we need to then determine what things, as we frame as dads, are load bearing, meaning
Yeah.
they can't be moved. These load bearing values, right? So for our family, faith is one of those values. Going the extra mile, caring for people, respect, encouraging, whatever those might be. But everything can't be load bearing. If everything matters equally, what happens? Nothing matters at all.
Yeah.
So you have to determine as dads, as we think about framing for our families, what are those non-negotiables? And then where are we going to have freedom in the framework to be flexible where we need to be, depending on the season, depending on the child. Right, I got 4 kids. They're all very different. I've got twins that are incredibly different, and I have to parent very differently. If I take the same approach and don't have flexibility in how I approach and talk to them, it's a disaster. They're very different.
Yeah, I what you're saying, I think, is resonating with me, because I think sometimes when we think of having a frame, we think of not having flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, the frame allows you to have flexibility in the right areas. It's not but there's intentionality going into it.
That's exactly
So,
right.
I like that. So, following a blueprint, so having some plan in place, establishing the load-bearing walls, which is thinking about where there can be flexibility, what's important. What else we got?
This is one that's a tough one. It's a tough one to execute. It's about boundaries.
I mean, so let's
So
just
what?
say,
So in the house analogy,
yeah,
this means where are the walls?
yeah, where do the walls go?
Could be aesthetic for the house. Could be protective.
Yeah,
But like you're thinking about, where do I put these walls up and why? As a dad, I mean, because think about that. Like in a house, like they define rooms. This room is this. Could be the weight, load bearing piece, or safety. But in parenting, we got to figure out those boundaries, because in that same analogy, it's about predictability, it's about security, and it's about clarity. And so it's really, really important.
wait, give me those again. It's about what?
Predictability,
Yep.
security, and clarity.
So I want to just hit each of those, because I have not. Predictability. This, I can tell this is a gap for me. So as a dad, this boundary of predictability is your kids not having to worry about how dad's going to be in this. Like, they know what to expect. So predictability is key. What was your second one?
Security.
Security. Like that, the right boundaries create comfort for our kids.
That's right.
It helps them feel safe, which I think is one of the most important things that we need to do.
It is, and we gloss over that because, like, oh, safe. Like, I live in a safe neighborhood. That's not. Yes, that's part of it, but for a child, safety and security is about comfort. It's about being themselves.
Yeah.
One of my girls she's just off the charts in how she thinks, and she's got some things we're working through with her. And one of the things we're learning about her as we have taken her to some doctors is she doesn't feel like, despite her being an incredibly good student and all the teachers love her, she doesn't feel safe at school, and therefore at home she's acting in a way that seems like she's being defiant and hard, but it's because she's kept in who she is all day at school.
Yeah.
So as hard as she is at home, she's safe and secure to be to let it all out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we've got to create that space for our children if your kids are saying, hey, when you ask them, hey, what do you love about this house? If somehow they're not talking about comfort, security, safety, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to turn that up for them.
So the right boundaries create predictability, they create security, and they create clarity. Like, this is where this room ends. This is where, and so in parenting, there's not ambiguity on what the expectations are. There's not ambiguity on, am I loved? Am I cared for? It's clear.
It's clear. And I think our kids, whether they can articulate it or not, they crave those things.
Yeah.
I can even see on long breaks, whether it's summer.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So summer breaks sound great. They're not if you don't have some sort of structure, because they're insane. They need to at least know we're going to do this, this, and this. And if not, it's like complete chaos.
Before I was a parent, so we had kids when I was 32, so a little bit older, I guess. Maybe not in normal times in today's age, but a little bit older. So I would watch people post about like, oh, we can't wait for break to be over and get our kids back in school. And I'm like, these are such buzzkill parents. Like, how terrible that they want, like, why are you, I'm there now. Like, I remember the end of this winter break, like the day or two, we're like, our kids need that structure. They need the clarity. When Laura was like reading Moms on Call and we had babies and it was like, oh, we're gonna have the kids on a schedule. I'm like, schedule? That is, again, such a buzzkill, so annoying.
Shout out to Moms on Call, by the way. Local Atlanta company, maybe one day podcast guest, who knows? They want to.
Moms on Call
saved us.
And I'm sorry if your kids don't sleep through the night. Our kids do well. We are Moms on Call believers. The structure created. So the predictability and the clarity created a freedom that made our life so much better.
Totally.
And so I love that.
I'm going to get on the soapbox here for a second.
Okay, here we go.
Here we're going. We're rolling. I believe strongly kids, they push up against walls not because they hate them. Mm-hmm. They push up against, but like they need to know they're there. Kids need to know that there are walls in certain spots. That's fine. You're going to, they're testing. That's what kids do. They're going to push to see where the resistance is. This is not my kid pushes, or I'm just going to, my little junior presses and pushes and they're going to be amazing one day because they push the envelope. Okay. But at some point you better provide some resistance.
Yeah.
Because if not, there will be chaos down the line in little junior's life, whether they're 12, 13, or 25.
Yeah.
And we're seeing chaos all over the country right now because I think that parents allowed little junior to continue to press up against where walls should have been, and no one provided resistance. There was no checking of, hey man, you're pushing a little too far and let me show you why you're pushing too far, because they felt like, well, I need to be their friend. I need to encourage. I need to make sure they're seen for who that's okay to a point. And we've lost that point.
That is warmth without structure.
That is warmth without structure.
So, and you said it's chaos. Okay. So following a blueprint, load-bearing walls, defining boundaries. Now this one seems like it goes against defining boundaries, but it doesn't. It's about creating space.
Yes.
So unpack what that means for you.
For me, creating space, it's creating space for what matters. So when you design a house, so like, where do you spend most of your time as a family?
Yeah, we spend a lot of it in our kitchen, really, like breakfast area
Same.
kind of stuff.
Same. And when we prioritized some remodel work in our house when we moved in 5-6 years ago, it was the kitchen in that area. We spend a disproportionate amount of our time as a unit of 6 people in those spaces. And we had to redesign some things to make it even more that way.
We should have a session sponsor. When I drive down and listen to the radio, there's some radio in Atlanta, some ad that's like, the kitchen is the new family room. Invest in your new kitchen. Let's see if they'll pay for our episode.
We should, yeah.
But your space for what matters most. We're talking physical here, but this goes way beyond physical. This is about the space and the schedule for what matters most. You and I both like Jesse Itzler. I'm always convicted when he talks about scheduling fun and most of us, we schedule all the work and then we try to fit in what other things work, but putting the things that matter on the calendar.
That's exactly right. And I think where you just said space for what matters and paralleled to the calendar and the schedule is the most important thing. Yeah. And that is the biggest point of tension right now for families.
It is.
It's sports, it's activities, it's school, it's all the things.
Yeah. You had, I don't know if we were going to talk about this later, but you had something you mentioned to me about like learning when to say no.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. We need a blueprint and load-bearing walls, and we need to define the boundaries, and we need to create space. What happens when we don't have those things? What exists when we don't have these things in place?
I think we can go through a few of those. I always try to cast vision out to the future, and I think about talking to my kids when they're 30. Okay. And I think about a conversation that goes something like this, either or, and I get to now choose what their answer is going to be. one thing they would say is, I wasn't sure what mattered in my house. Or I always knew what my dad and mom stood for.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of the either or right now that we have to be careful of. And we talked a little bit about how we do that. But there, as you said, there is a lot of there's many dangers of poor framing.
Without clear boundaries, they don't know what matter.
They don't know what matter. I think first and foremost is that parenting without vision. And again, I think people disqualify themselves. Like, I'm so busy. Like, what do you mean I got to think about this? Or I got to do this? Like, again, like some family motto and mission. It's not about that. It's like, what? It's the simple, what do you want your kids to say about you when they're grown and they're talking to their friends? Hey, this is what my parents are. Of course, they're going to name some crazy stuff you did. Or we all make mistakes. But like, what do you want them to say? And it's not like 15 sentences. Like, what are a couple words? And really be thoughtful. Then how do you reverse engineer their answers? Like, if you want them to say my dad was there,
you got to do that.
Too bad if you travel all the time. Then figure out how you can then frame up that you were there and you made sacrifices. So parenting without vision, number one.
What else?
I think disciplining without the explanation. Like, I think it's so important to this is why you are having a problem. Not just, hey, you're in trouble. Like, let's walk this forward. This is what the danger of how you're behaving is. Is that in line with who we are as a family? And, we need to have conversation with our kids.
Yeah, I saw this. We had written, fathers help frame how kids see themselves, how they see God, and how they see the world. Mm-hmm. So the words we speak, the way we do things. And so what you're saying is not just you're in trouble, but you're in trouble because this is important to us as a family, or this is important, or this is what the Bible says. For your family, it's giving that context, and the words they hear over and over, a lot of times later in life, the voices they hear in their head are going to be defined by what they heard from their dad as a child.
Yes, and think about how these build. So if you're parenting without vision, it's harder to then discipline with an explanation, right? Because you're just in trouble. All right, well, if I have a vision for my family and these are the things we stand for and this is what I want to be known for, then when they have an issue or they're out of line, I get to say, look, you're out of line because this is now not in alignment with who we are, what our expectations are. So like if you miss a couple of these, they compound and they're challenging. The other thing I think about is prioritizing success over character. And let me be clear, I don't know a lot of dads that are like, your number one thing is to score 30 points. I would say 99% of dads verbalize character over success, but their actions do not say the same thing.
Yeah, because we're praising them when they score all these, and we're not doing it for like.
I can't say before a game, hey buddy, like what do I expect of you? My best. Be a good teammate. Awesome. Go have fun. Like take the pressure off you. And then after the game, I'm in a bad mood because he scored 4 points and not 20.
Yeah.
Well, that's not like that is such a disconnect for the kid. And so we can say all we want, character, but if like we're only happy when Junior was the best on the court or field, these kids know that. They can pick up on that.
Yep.
And then I'd close with just saying, yes day every day, saying yes to everything.
That's a problem. So,
yeah.
Which again, I think is countercultural, but this idea that some boundaries are beneficial to the kid.
They are. Because I think that house without framing is going to collapse under its own weight. A house that doesn't have vision is going to drift under cultural pressure.
So let me just close with this thought, and then I'll let you can wrap it up for us. But vision really is about a direction. It's about clarity on where we're headed. And Andy Stanley would say it this way, that direction, not intention, determines destination. So what he's saying is we can intend to be a good dad. We can hope to be a good dad. We can think we're being a good dad, but none of those really matters. It's the direction we set ourselves on. And if we don't lay out the blueprint of the frame about where the boundaries are and where we're going to have space and what the load-bearing walls will be, if we don't establish that in advance, we are going to end up getting to a destination we don't want to be at. And I loved your picture, Eric, of a kid that's 30 or 35 that one day will describe what living in your home was like. And you don't get to give them that answer then, but the way and the direction with which you make decisions now will influence what they say down the road. I think if we think about the long view, the legacy long term will do things differently in the short term.
Perfect. Here's where I will close with. I will close with a challenge. I think you summed that up beautifully. And it's really a challenge framed in a question. Over this next week, if someone observed your family, they were, you're on candid camera for a week, what would they say that you were building? What kind of family? What are you about? Again, you don't get to give them the answer. It's only observed on your actions.
This is not only observed like when you're out of the restaurant, everybody can see you. This is in your home. When it's just your family. Yep. When your kid asks for another cup of water for the 7th time at bedtime.
Yep. What are we building? And so, listen, it's convicting conversations. I think it's really great conversations, but where the rubber meets the road is, what do you do with it? You and I are having this conversation not because we figured it out, not because we have a beautiful foundation that we've laid and we've built these load-bearing walls and we framed our house the right way. We're on the journey, but the real magic is, what do you go do with it now if you felt convicted from this conversation? And we look forward to being on that journey with you all. We'll be back at it here shortly.